Okay, so I have to talk about this. The Bitcoin 2026 conference happened recently in Las Vegas. 40,000 people showed up. And on paper, that sounds amazing, right? I mean, Bitcoin is thriving, people are engaged, the community is growing. But then you look at who was actually on that stage. I'm talking Blackrock, the SEC chair, a senator, Eric Trump, corporate treasury executives, and people started losing it. Early Bitcoin investor Simon Dixon went on record and said, and I'm paraphrasing for the sake of this episode, he said the conference is compromised, that it is being run by and for the people who are trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible inside traditional financial wrappers. And I am sitting with that. I am sitting with it because it raises a real question that I don't think has a clean answer. Is Bitcoin still for the people, or did Wall Street quietly win? That is what we are getting into today. Welcome to Web3 Quick Bites. I'm Olabisi. Let's go. So, before we start this episode, I am going to take us through a quick history lesson. And I'll be fast about this because you probably know about the story. And if you don't, stick with me. Bitcoin was created in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto, anonymous person, anonymous origin. And the whole point was peer to peer money, no banks, no governments, no middlemen. You hold your own keys, you control your own money. Nobody can freeze it, censor it, or take it from you. That was the founding promise. That was the vision. That was the goal. And for a long time, people who fell into these categories that I mentioned, those were the people Bitcoin attracted. People wouldn't trust institutions, people in countries with broken financial systems, people who believed the whole thing was rotten and wanted an exit. That was the energy. That was the community. Not your keys, not your coins, self custody. Be your own bank. That was the goal. But fast forward to 2026, and Bitcoin ETFs are a thing. And not just a thing, a massive thing. Bitcoin ETFs collectively hold over 1 million coins. BlackRock's ETF alone has about $70 billion in assets. Morgan Stanley just joined, and Bank of America told his world advisors they can now recommend crypto allocations. And that's not even the wild part. This is the wild part. More Bitcoin is now held through ETFs, corporate treasuries, and custodial platforms than through individuals holding their own wallets. I want us to sit with that for a second because the asset that was built for self custody and individual sovereignty is now majority owned through institutions, through the same kinds of structures Bitcoin was originally designed to replace. And at the conference, the criticism from early adopters was not just aesthetic, like, ha, suits in the room. We now have major institutional providers in the room with us. No, the argument was way deeper than that. You see, when Bitcoin is mostly held in regulated wrappers, when most people access it through ETFs and custodians rather than their own wallets, the network's resistance to institutional control changes, not at the protocol level, but in practice. I mean, you don't control what you don't custody. Just think about it. Okay, so, but here is where I want to still man the other side because I think this actually deserves a fair hearing. Institutional adoption, and this is me talking about the pros of it. Institutional adoption has brought real things. Bitcoin's crashes are getting smaller. Initially, it used to drop 80 to 90% in bear markets. The recent downturn was, I think, closer to 50%. That's still brutal. Yeah, it is. But compared to 80 to 90% before, it is now different. So, what that means is there's more liquidity, there's more stability. Analysts are saying a small Bitcoin allocation now actually improves portfolio returns without dramatically increasing risk. And if you ask me, I would say honestly, price stability is what brings in more people. More people means more adoption. More adoption means more infrastructure. And that infrastructure could eventually make it easier for regular people, you and I, including people in third world countries, in places without reliable banking, to actually use Bitcoin day to day. So the argument from the institutional side is, yeah, we changed the vibe, but we made it bigger, and bigger is better. But if you ask me, Olabisi will tell you this. Because here is where I land on this. Here is where Olabisi lands on this. And I'm curious what you think. I think both things can be true at the same time. Bitcoin, the protocol itself, it has not changed. The code is still the same. The $21 million cap is the same. Oh, the 21 million cap is the same. Nobody changed the rules. But Bitcoin, the movement, Bitcoin, the culture, the route around institutions' energy, that has completely changed. And we can no longer pretend it hasn't, because we pretending just means we are being dishonest about this whole thing. But you see, what is interesting to me from a great perspective, because that is my lens, is that this tension is actually a signal. It is what happens when something goes from niche to mainstream. The early adopters built the thing with one set of values. The mainstream arrived with different ones. And now there's friction. We saw this with the internet. We saw this with social media. The people who built it and the people who monetized it were not always the same people with the same vision, different visions. Now, the question is, does Bitcoin's decentralized protocol protect its founding purpose even as the ownership structure changes? Or does who owns it end up mattering more than who built it? I'm going to repeat that again. Does Bitcoin's centralized protocol protect its founding purpose even as the ownership structure changes? Or does who owns it end up mattering more than who built it? I think that's a question that I genuinely don't even know the answer to, but I think it's the most important question in crypto right now. And it's something that if you're listening to this, one should sit with and just let it marinate, let it sink in while we're trying to find genuine answers to that. Because I honestly do not know the answer to that. But I still think it's the most important question for us in crypto right now. And so, guys, that's ends today's episode on Web3 Quick Bites. I want to know where you stand on this. Do you think institutional adoption is a win for Bitcoin or a slow dilution of what made it worth caring about in the first place? You can drop me a message, you can drop your comments, leave a review, or share this with someone who has opinions, because this particular episode, it needs a conversation and not just a monologue. I'm Olabisi. Thanks for listening to Web3 Quick Bites, and I'll see you in the next one.